Hello, 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 everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are. We thank you for joining today. We've got a great lineup set up for talking all about KDB-X with a little bit more of a technical angle for all of our developers out there. Now, before we get started, I'll just go ahead and introduce myself. My name is Ryan Sigler. I lead the developer relations team here at KX. And today we're joined by Chief Product and Engineering Officer Michael Gilfix, as well as the Head of Engineering, Andrew Wilson. And I'll give you both a chance to introduce yourselves in just a moment. But first, while people join the session, just a couple items to cover. And I know the big question always is this going to be recorded? And yes, it will be recorded. Just after the session concludes, it will be available on YouTube for you to rewatch as you please or repost to your social networks. And then also we have a comments pane over here. So you're welcome to ask your questions or put in any comments that you have. And one thing I'd ask is if you've tried KDB-X, the public preview so far, put in the comments, is there anything in there, or what's your particular favorite feature that you found in the KDB-X public preview so far? We'd be really interested to know. And if you haven't tried it, what are you most looking forward to? But with that, let's go ahead and dive into our, I guess, call it an interview today with our Michael Gilfix and Andrew Wilson. And Mike, would you go ahead and just introduce yourself and give us a little brief overview of what is KDB-X?
Sure. So I lead product and engineering at KDB-X at KX, which we're very happy about KDB-X. But yes, I've been with KX now for about 2.5 years, actually, since I joined. And it's been a wild ride. It's an amazing opportunity to work with many talented people. And I'm super excited about this project that we have with KDB-X, which is the next generation of KDB+. But it's something that we're doing very differently than the way we've done before. I think as we kind of get into our conversation, you'll see that we're working differently. We have a different vision for where we want to take the technology. Spoiler alert, you're going to see we're going to be way more open about how we work with different technology, how we work with our community. But we're incredibly excited about it because we think this is a very different direction and a very different feel for how we're doing the development.
Awesome. Thank you. And Andrew, if you'd go ahead and introduce yourself and talk a little bit about how are we making KDB-X more accessible than maybe KDB+ was in the past?
Yeah, cool. So I'm Andrew Wilson. I head up engineering with KDB-X. In particular, the core team that previously represented KDB+ Q, but as we'll sort of get into now, a slightly broader remit, a slightly broader team. I've been a background. I've been around sort of KDB+ Q for about 20 years at this point in various capacities, as a user, as a consultant, and now as kind of the developer within the core team. KDB-X, first and foremost, KDB-X is very much an investment in KDB. It's really a commitment from our team to support the developers that want to build data platforms and applications with KDB+ and using the Q language. KDB is really a unified platform that users have come to depend on for exceptional performance at large scale, and they've sort of lent into and fallen in love with the Q language and its ability to build workflows, to express complex time series analytics. KDB-X is really an investment in that platform. And as you say, a real explicit focus on accessibility. So we've been working with our user community so far, and we want to build, as Mike alluded to, a more open product, structured around some core principles. And as we go through what the product is, I think you'll see those principles reflected. We want to reduce the barriers to entry to KDB and accelerate users' time to insight. We want to streamline users' application development and make it easy to extend KDB to new data sets, new workflows, new use cases. And we want to integrate KDB seamlessly with existing infrastructure and allow users to have sort of choice of language, choice of data format, and basically play nice and talk with all of the other features that they have within their existing data platform.
Thanks, Andrew. And I know one of the big things that we wanted to focus on building KDB-X was taking in all the user feedback that we could. So Mike, were there some common user feedback that we came across, and how did that help shape sort of what we developed with KDB-X?
Well, I think first it's important maybe to describe some of the things that we've done really differently. For example, we were public with our roadmap. I think I know Andrew and I had many a debate over that, because it was an uncomfortable position for us, but I think a necessary one, where we had to tell people that we were going to do things differently, what we were going to invest in, because it's hard to get feedback if people don't know what you're working on. And then we adopted a preview process. And that preview process meant that we were going to do continuous delivery where those get made available in the public domain. And then developers, because, you know, code talks, developers can download that, play with the code, give us feedback on it. And we had different mechanisms by which they could provide that feedback. Some are active mailing lists. Some are things where they could submit it in the email. I know, Ryan, you personally were super involved in the meetups, and we've done different things via social media. But this gave just essentially a variety of different forums that help us to figure out, are we hitting the mark? And in my opinion, it's actually been really successful, because I would say in the first set of previews that we did, we learned a lot about how people wanted to use our technology, where some of the rough edges were in our implementations and APIs. And we uncovered some use cases that we had not actually anticipated. And that gave us a great food for thought on how we should construct our technology going forward. So it's something that we want to continue to do. I think this helps us to build better products and make sure that we hit the mark. And like I said, we've gotten everything from, hey, this isn't behaving the way we thought kind of feedback, to, hey, what if I could use it this way? And then we said, oh, we hadn't anticipated you could do that. Maybe we need to go back to the drawing board, think about that usage pattern, think about how to make it better.
Yeah, and focusing a little bit more on that feedback loop seems to be like a very critical part, really even down to the engineering of KDB-X. Andrew, when your team was designing KDB-X, what sort of technical challenges did you run into, and how did you break through those?
Yeah, as Mike alluded to, this is really a change not just in what we're developing, but in how we're developing it. So as we see this, we've been working closely with the users so far, and we really intend to accelerate that going forward. You're going to see more open source development from KX, even more transparency with what we're researching, what we're working on, and more of that direct engagement with the community. So, I mean, really the number one goal has been to make sure that the changes that we're making are impacting real use cases and solving real difficult problems for customers. So that's meant really kind of talking to customers about what their most difficult problems are, really thinking about, you know, what's the best way to approach this, sometimes thinking outside the box and trying to find commonality among what different users are having difficulty with, and sort of shaping the new features to address those things. It's also really been critical that we're giving existing users the simplest possible path to upgrade to KDB-X. So that's really a challenge when you're adding significant new language features and support for new data formats, but it's really critical that we've maintained maximum backward compatibility. So we're pleased to say anyway at this stage that KDB-X should be a seamless upgrade, whether you're a Q developer or using Parquet-X. And if you're using the new features, it should be possible to do so with minimal changes to your existing code, and in parallel with continuing usage of any old code or any old features. Finally, it was critical that as we added new features and we added, I guess, to the whole ecosystem, that our performance wasn't negatively impacted. KDB's always meant exceptional performance, scale. Basically, our users pretty much exclusively operate in environments with huge amounts of data where, you know, milliseconds or even microseconds matter. So with KDB-X, we've worked hard to maintain and in some places improve the performance of the product.
Thanks, Andrew. And of course, with a new product comes new capabilities. So this isn't just a sort of a rebranding of KDB Plus, is it? And what are those new capabilities? What are the key technical differences that are added with KDB Plus, or sorry, KDB-X?
Yeah, there's a lot. I have to be careful I don't talk for too long here because there really is so much. One of the most important differences that users will find, it really isn't a feature at all, but it's this increased focus on usability. So right from the off, users should find it simpler to download, install, configure the system. We've removed a lot of the need for sort of complex environment setups and dependency on some third-party libraries like RL wrap. Then, of course, there's the community license, which is critical to sort of getting people up to speed with sort of minimal friction at the start, letting people try out the product in a commercial setting without needing to engage us in all sorts of ways. With KDB-X itself, then what people will see is, as I said, it goes beyond the core. It's an entire ecosystem around that core engine. That's something that will grow significantly over the coming months and years, but just right from the bat, there's a lot of things that users are going to see that's really going to add to their ability to build up big systems and exciting systems with KDB-X. So Python integration is going to be included from the start, fully compatible with Parquet-X. Native SQL is going to be built in alongside the QSQL. We'll have native support for Parquet data, which I'll talk a bit more about later. We'll have visualization available through the KX dashboards included with KDB-X. We'll have direct access to data stored on object storage, which you can mix in with your data stored locally and on various disk formats. We've provided a suite of AI libraries that previously powered the KDB.AI product, so people will be able to investigate structured and unstructured data side by side. And finally, we have a new module framework, which will enable much easier development of libraries in KDB. And again, I'll talk a bit more about this later, hopefully, but that's really going to turbocharge that ecosystem going forward.
Yeah, that's really exciting. Looking forward to diving a bit more into those capabilities. But first, Mike, a quick question for you, and I think this is an important one because there's people out there who have been using KDB for years, and maybe they are wondering, why should I consider upgrading to KDB-X from my previous system?
I think there's a few reasons why. One, productivity. So I feel like Andrew, he had to condense it, so he only scratched the surface on some of the things that we're doing around what we refer to as developer tooling, but like how is it easy to debug my applications, profile my applications. We're going to finally go after the mysterious error codes that you get in KDB and see if we can make that easier. So, but these are all things that will make developers substantially more productive. So that's an important thing right there, number one. Number two, I think all of the developers that use our stuff, we are awesome at figuring out signals from data, regardless of what industry you're in. But in capital markets, especially, in order to find those signals, people have to use a larger variety of data sets. So the multimodal nature of KDB-X means that you can source more data sets such that you can find richer signal from a variety of sources. And that's a great path to business benefit. I think the third thing that we've heard from our customers is, data is becoming increasingly distributed. These open formats are becoming so commonplace, but the effort required to tap into the data to get the value still remains high. And so we have an opportunity here with the things that we're implementing to bring the style of processing and performance and flexibility that wasn't KDB Plus as part of KDB-X, but to lakehouse architectures. And that means you can access a wider variety of data and use it in a more simpler fashion. Those are just a few of the things we have. We actually have some, as Andrew said, we're investing in the core engine, which means as the core engine gets better, there will be performance benefits to things like partitioning scheme and scales. So there's so much richness there. I think this is really what's the word that you describe? It's a stepwise function. It's a big step up, I think, from folks. It's not just an incremental improvement, but that will allow those folks to really get a lot of value. And then, oh, I have to say, of course, lastly, and this is a topic I'm passionate about, and really credit to Andrew and his team. One of the benefits of the open modularity that he described is that we've actually been able to get our community to start contributing as well. And so an investment in KDB-X isn't just an investment in what KX builds, but it's actually an investment in an ecosystem that's going to give you even more things to go and assemble your solution faster. And with that, I should probably stop because I'm running out of time, for this question, because there is so much richness to be had there, I think, for the community.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And I think it really goes well into this idea of how is KDB-X going to help us and our users to tackle the more modern data workloads. And I think one thing my mind jumps to is, of course, we're famous for working with time series data, but we also know that unstructured data makes up a very large percentage of all the data out there. So a new modern workload looks like really combining those two types of data together. So we know that KDB-X can help us do that. And would you be able to talk a little bit more to that point?
Yeah, I think there's different dimensions to modern workloads. So you touched on one, which is that people want to tap into the entirety of their data estate, which means unstructured data. That's a huge benefit of KDB-X. You have a multimodal database. It can work across both types of data, and it can help to make sense of that data for consumption, whether it's for analytical purposes, whether it's for AI applications and navigating the data. I think another thing really is modern data architectures. A lot of people thought about KDB Plus as living on an island increasingly. It wasn't integrated into the way that they worked. But the kinds of changes that Andrew and team are doing means that, you can now, I have to find some analogy about liberating the island or something, but no longer are you in isolation. You can integrate it into your modern data architecture and go and make that work. And I think that's a huge potential, right, for folks to access the ecosystem, work in a modern way. Lakehouse architectures are very attractive because there's a whole ecosystem of tooling for working with your data. So now you can get the best of both worlds, right? The kind of flexibility of things like Q, what we've done in Python to establish that, but work on those distributed data architectures. Those are probably a few good reasons why that can help folks to modernize. I would say lastly is there's a huge focus on our roadmap and interoperability in a way we've never had before. And what that means is that over time, it'll be easier to embed the high performance style of data processing into the way you work, whether you're building an application in a different language, whether you have to integrate with different data infrastructure, Kafka Solus, whether you're trying to go and make that work in your, Trino Presto or distributed environment or work with your BI tool. I mean, these are all things. We want to make it super easy so that you can not just do those analytics in us and your data processing, but consume it in all these different places. Again, it's part of getting off the island and, moving to the mainland. See, I figured it out at the end. I needed some analogy. I didn't know what went with an island. I went with mainland.
I think going right off that point, one of the ways we're moving over to the mainland is with this module management system. And that's one of the key and core new features of KDB-X. Andrew, would you be able to just go a little deeper onto what that ecosystem looks like with module management and how will that improve the developer experience?
Yeah, modules are a fairly simple idea, but I think they're going to be probably the most powerful thing that we've done with KDB-X in the long term. Modules are just a unit of encapsulation in KDB-X. So it's how do you encapsulate code, libraries of ideas, basically. Previously, all code was managed via scripts, and that worked really well in any sort of a small system, but it didn't really scale. Became unwieldy, made sharing of code difficult too. You end up with things like name clashes and unexpected side effects when you're interacting with the system. Modules are the future. With modules, then libraries, each library is going to have access to its own namespace. Developers can easily separate the implementation from the interface. They deliberately expose the interface that users will see. They got concepts like sub-modules, so users can build up more complex modules for simpler parts. It all just leads us to the ability to reuse code in order to build up much more complex systems quickly and really kind of bootstrap ideas and share ideas. When people are using modules, they import them similar to how languages like Python allow you to create aliases for their various libraries. So import pandas as PD so that you kind of automatically can relocate code and avoid name clashes that way. It all just makes it a lot easier to share code. We'll be providing, as part of the GA for KDB-X, a series of modules, many of which I've already spoken about, some of which will be open source, as I say, something we want to do increasingly going forward. They'll be shared up on our GitHub. But we really encourage users to experiment and build their own modules, which they're free to do in Q or in K or in C. We've had lots of users reach out and ask how they can take advantage of it. Our partners, as I think Mike alluded to at Data Intellect, have really endorsed this and stepped right in. They've created a real sort of host of useful libraries and utilities based on their Torque framework, which they've released open source. They plan to release a lot more in the future. That ecosystem, I think, is going to be the real game changer for how users develop KDB applications going forward. And this is just the start of it. We're seeding it now. I think what's there is powerful, but what's to come is what's really gonna change the game.
And by the way, Ryan, just to seed some ideas for the listeners, the kind of feedback we were getting in our process, I heard two really interesting ideas from our customers that we're kind of contemplating. One was someone that said they wanted to use the module management to do micro updates of code where they don't bring the runtime down, but just update a section of code super quickly. We had another customer that said they wanted to A/B test different modules that were running in the same runtime simultaneously. But that's the kind of stuff that we've gotten really valuable feedback from customers. It's an example of contemplating use cases we had not before. So I just want to share that because this audience can continue to give us some great feedback like that, and we'll learn potentially some great use cases, some great value that we had not anticipated. And to me, that's the power of the community-driven model.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And the community-driven feedback is so important. I know one of the biggest feedbacks that we got and requests was for open file format support, and number one being Parquet support, which is of course one of the modules that is included with KDB-X. So Andrew, would you want to talk a little bit about the Parquet support module?
Yeah, as you say, undoubtedly the number one feature request we've had over the last 12 months. I think it's easier to list the users that haven't asked for it. Most people know what Parquet is. It's a columnar storage format. It's designed for sort of efficient storage and retrieval. It's pretty much become the de facto standard for archival and exchange of data. It's the new CSV. I've heard one of our engineers say recently. I think that's probably accurate, but obviously it does a lot more than CSV. KDB Plus already had fairly significant support for Parquet through this Arrow KDB Fusion library. But KDB-X takes that a significant step forward and supports native querying of Parquet files within the language. So if you consider a Parquet file contains a huge table of data, instead of having to sort of load it and migrate it to our format, you can just directly query that data. You can run a select query. You can do filtering. You can do aggregations. You can just make sense directly of Parquet data without needing to translate it. You can also therefore you can analyze that in conjunction with KDB data, and I think that's where the real power of KDB-X is going to come in. You're going to be able to mix and match KDB Plus native format with Parquet data, and mixing data on different formats, and hopefully seamlessly get really valuable information that would have required a whole bunch of ETL and migration previously. It's probably worth saying that the release that we have here is really just the start of our adventure with open formats. Over the coming, I guess, even weeks and months, we'll be leaning into some of the more complex ideas and developing support for Hive partitioning, for iceberg layouts, and even to other open source formats. I would reiterate on that we're really looking to user feedback to drive that, particularly users with complex use cases that are using this data in maybe unexpected ways in some of the architectures that Mike's already mentioned. So yeah, try it out. I think it's pretty powerful, but as I say, this is just the start. We're open formats going forward, and yeah, good to hear what people think.
And Andrew, that functionality that's available right now in the public preview.
That's correct. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and actually, for all of you developers that might want to give this a try, there'll be a tutorial on this feature that'll be coming in the next couple of days. So keep your eyes open for that one.
Cool.
All right. So moving on to one of the other modules that we actually got a question about in the chat from Suresh, who asked if we have any plans to create MCP server to connect to LLMs. Well, one of the modules that we have is the AI libraries module. And also separately from that, we do indeed have an MCP server integration. So Mike, if you'd like to talk a little bit about that AI libs and the MCP server, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so as you point out, Ryan, we do have that actually today. That's available in the public preview. You can download it, you can use it. There's a few different components that are in that. So one of the things we did is that we extended the data types to include vector embedding data types, and then provided the kinds of operations that you need to operate on those vector data types. That's things like vector search, distance metrics, and then integration with things like RAG frameworks via Llama Index, LangChain, those types of things. What that would allow you to do is we have actually multimodal search. So we support a very broad variety of different search mechanisms. So in the same integrated, say, table, you can search your structured and your unstructured data. It will do hybrid search, meaning it'll score the best example of it. And you can search based on similarity search, literal search, contains, and fuzzy search as well, all in the same integrated thing that allows you to find the best data based on the user input. It'll score the data for the best accuracy. And we've certainly seen, as we've worked with some of our customers, that there is a big boost in accuracy because of hybrid search, especially in scenarios that transcend market data as well as unstructured data about those markets. And then what the MCP server does is it establishes a protocol between an LLM or an AI agent that allows it to introspect your data and then do callable functions. And that's probably one of the most, Parquet aside, is the most in-demand feature, but it has got to definitely be like a top 3 in-demand feature that we have now. We have tons of customers that are trying to figure out how to make it easier to open up access, the infamous democratize the data, but just make it easier for more customers to tap into that data. And whether it's things like traders that just, without having to go to a developer, want to get answers about what they're doing, market analysts that want to tap into that data for better research purposes, sales and support staff that need to be able to make sense of trade data as well as market data in one place. So that MCP server works both with structured and unstructured data. By the way, it will work with your existing KDB Plus data, so you don't have to do a lot of work around it. There is a bit of AI engineering you have to do, where there's some metadata you describe to the MCP server that helps the LM to navigate your data, but it's something that's available. You can use it, you can attach it, and we've been seeing tons of people like unleash great creative use cases. Honestly, it kind of looks like magic when you see the LM navigate the data that way, because it looks so clever using that protocol to do access. So those are available today. You can get them in KDB-X. If you just had a KDB Plus database, it can do it just on the structured data. But in KDB-X, it can do it on both in one runtime.
Yeah, just the idea of being able to query your KDB data with natural language. I mean, a few years ago, that was sort of something that maybe was a bit of a dream, but today with MCP, that really is possible. I mean,
Ryan, I should actually add, just to point out to folks, the reason, there's a really compelling reason, by the way, to do this, the structured and the unstructured data with an MCP server in us as a runtime, because a lot of these architectures, you can distribute your tools for the LLMs, but you'll actually get radically better economics if you do it in our runtime. The reason being that LLMs are really expensive data integrators, meaning you don't want an LLM trying to do what a database does very efficiently, because it's a very expensive processor of data. So you can decide the granularity of that, meaning you can push into the database runtime the really smart query, and then your LLM is making sense of high quality data, which means you get a better output, but the cost per token goes way down because the database is super efficient in getting the answer. And that's something that's afforded by our runtime versus other approaches. So it's a pretty exciting value proposition for many of our customers.
Absolutely. And I think maybe a perfect branch from the AI stuff is GPU acceleration. And I know at our recent meetups in New York and London, we had presentations on the GPU acceleration that we are working on right now. The innovation team at KX has been working on this, and there's some pretty awesome features that it's introducing. So Mike, would you want to talk a little bit about that GPU acceleration for both unstructured data, like we've been talking about, as well as for structured data?
Yeah, so we're pretty excited about this because obviously, KX has been known for performance for quite some time, and the compute landscape is changing pretty dramatically with GPUs. A lot of the memory divide that has existed in GPUs historically has started to be erased with a lot of the new architectures or the converged, Blackwell architectures. So these are creating huge opportunities for our customers to get radical order of magnitude speed up. The kinds of stuff that folks were excited about the meetup, I mean, just for everyone's awareness, we've long had integrations for GPU around unstructured data, things like optimized vector search. You can use them for the encoding of the vectors, the language encoding, say, for natural language to vector or image into vector for search. But one of the things that's really exciting that we actually have now, and it's available in some alpha code we've been working with customers on, is accelerating all manner of data processing and structured data processing. And the team did something really clever because, using GPUs can be hard. So basically there's a library for that GPU that allows you to put markers around the section that you want to execute in GPU. It requires very little code change to do it. And then the operations go and run on a GPU. And we've done everything from the obvious, like, matrix multiplication or the math algebra, to more exciting things like executing as-if joins and sorts on GPUs. And we've seen a lot of really cool use cases emerging. So things like radically accelerating end-of-day processes where people do their end-of-day computation reporting. Maybe it takes them 5 hours. They have to get it like late at night so that their folks can read about the effects of their trades the next day, the market conditions, et cetera. They can see all their data. Well, what if we could shrink that before everyone left for work? Or what if we could take that end-of-day process and turn it into an intraday process? Or even just, very computational transaction stuff like backtesting. If you could go and shrink the backtesting window dramatically, literally, potentially days into almost an hour or minutes, then you can do what-if scenario calculations and backtest more different scenarios and weights to be more prepared for market conditions. We have tons of these interesting use cases emerging. So end-of-day process acceleration, end-of-day binning and sorting, backtesting, speeding up risk calculations and simulations, transactional processing that can shrink by an order of magnitude. And we've seen the kind of effect range. It depends on workload, but you can see things sometimes like, 3.5 on the very low end, but actually in many cases, it can be an order of magnitude 10x, 25x, right, in terms of speed up. And so that opens up huge potentials for those processes to be radically different because the compression of time is so dramatic. So we're super excited about this. I mean, Ryan, you were there, I think, at some of these meetups. I know, Andrew, you were at the last one. I mean, the energy has been palpable, I think, on this topic. And we've had a lot of people say they want to go and try it out for their processing. And this is a great example, again, of customer feedback. We sort of have a core thing we're improving every day. We've been working with our customers to try it out, and they can help us understand what workloads they want to accelerate as part of that.
Yeah, it really is exciting. And if any of you weren't able to make it to either of the meetups, we do have the first video posted of the demo of the GPU work. So if you want to check that out, go to our YouTube page and you can actually watch the demo as it was at the meetup, like you were there. Pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, and by the way, those acceleration that's in that demo, that's using like an A100 it's not even using some of the other beasts that are available.
Right.
And I think when Nadaraj was doing that presentation, he said, this is the kind of thing you could rent for, what was it, like $1 an hour or something to get the card?
Yeah,
So
it was, it's incredible.
economics are fascinating. So it's certainly encourage folks to go and check that out.
Yeah, definitely. So check the video. And then there's also a blog that was just released a couple days ago on all of this GPU acceleration. So check that out on the kx.com/blog site. Now, with that, there's been a ton of features that we've covered today. Andrew, would you be able to talk a little bit about what's next and what's coming up on the roadmap over the next few months?
Yeah, for sure. As I said, we want to be more transparent. So I think we're gonna formalize a lot of this, and a lot of this is already on our website. But I can certainly give some exciting areas that we're looking at right now, research wise, based on some of the feedback we got from users. I mentioned earlier the virtual table system that enables Parquet support, which we're going to extend to support other open formats and things like Iceberg. Really, one of the big requests we've had from users is to take that even further and really drive to have a more powerful and transparent and flexible database. Flexibility around things like data format, storage devices, and different partitioning schemes. Essentially something like Hive partitioning for KDB's internal format. We're also looking at combining multiple databases. So that's databases on disk and databases in memory in a single process, allowing people to get, either much better performance or just much better efficiency from their systems, and just allowing the whole thing to work much more transparently than currently, when there's a lot of gateways generally in more complex systems. We want to remove those gateways and just have more direct access to the data. We'll be building on our concept of modules too. As soon as we released modules and started speaking to customers about modules, we knew what they would ask. They said, well, what about package management? Can we have pip for KDB? And I think that's really the next step. So how do we package up these modules? How do we share them? How do we really kind of bootstrap that ecosystem in the cloud and really get people using each other's code and contributing? And that ecosystem is really going to be the biggest area that you're going to see investment and innovation over the coming years. There's some key areas we want to look at. Developer tooling is a big one. People want static analysis. They want unit testing. They want profiling. They want logging. Interoperability is a big one. We started Fusion once upon a time. We're really investing in that again. So access to different Fusion interfaces to get access to different data formats on disk, on the wire, third-party libraries to extend integration with things like Arrow, Protobuf, BLAS, other mathematical and statistical libraries. And finally, really, we're not done with performance. We're not done with scalability, and we're looking at a lot of ways that we know already we can get faster. We can get the core of KDB, maybe another order of magnitude more performance. So we're looking at better parallelism, faster conversions, and more efficient operations, more efficient management of data under the hood. So yeah, whether you're using just plain Q, you're coming in via SQL, object storage, Parquet-X, you should continue to see KDB get faster and be able to deal better with the hardest problems with the biggest data sets.
Well, there's a lot already there, and then we have quite a bit to look forward to. So thanks for that rundown, Andrew.
Cool.
And Mike, if people want to try this out, how do they do that?
First, go to developer.kx.com. And actually what you're going to see there is our new developer center. We put some investment into simplifying, integrating all the different resources and making it way easier to get started. And we took a code first approach. So you can actually see like different recipes for use cases, and you can access them in Git. Like you can quickly go and get them up and running. So that's the first place to go. And just to make it super easy for folks to get started, we did bring to market our community edition, and that's been part of the preview process. Very shortly, we will have sort of like the official version of the community edition that you can use. And we're excited about that because we think it makes the technology way more accessible to a broader set of developers. One of the things that we heard from our community was, KDB Plus had a personal edition, but you couldn't really use it for commercial purposes. So we changed that. There are some resource limitations around it, but it's a great way for you to get started with the tech and even build some pretty powerful applications as part of that. So we are in the process of bringing that to market. It'll also make it way easier for us to do some of our programs that we have for building skill in the technology. We have a renewed investment, actually, right, that your team is running right around academic outreach. We've been working with a lot of our partners to help them actually scale up even more folks, not to mention our customers are going to be able to use that as a more simpler way to onboard their talent. And we've had lots of folks that are just amateur tinkerers that want to play with the tech and see what their creativity unleashes. So that's like a great way to get started. developerkx.com. It's a download. It's a really easy install, as Andrew mentioned. You can literally sort of one line command line it and then be up and running.
Awesome, thanks. And maybe one thing to mention, and this is a little sneak preview for you all, that keep your eyes open over the next really over the next month or so for some announcements around the KDB-X code challenge, where there's going to be some really awesome prizes, and it'll be a 5-day challenge of different KDB-X code, different functionality, and a great way to learn KDB-X while potentially getting some awesome prizes for doing it. Now, with that, we do have a question in from our community here, and we mentioned dashboards just briefly at the beginning, but maybe, Andrew, if you talk a little bit more about how dashboards is integrated in with KDB-X and what that does for you.
Yeah, this is the full dashboard experience, and it's the standalone dashboard, so you can connect it in to any existing or new KDB system. It's powerful for a lot of reasons. I mean, it's a rich visualization library that allows you to set up interactive and configurable dashboards that you can sort of ask questions of the data in new ways by zooming in, zooming out, connecting one application to another, connecting data sets via a visualization toolkit. The question here, though, points at the real-time analytics, and that really is probably what sets the dashboards apart: the ability to take true streaming data and create visualizations out of those. So this isn't a matter of just continually repolling the same data sets again and again with sort of slightly different query results. We can take live streams via WebSockets, and we can make visualizations as the data arrives at the front end. So it really is, it's tightly integrated with KDB. There's minimal sort of conversions needed, which really allows us to get that super high performance for real-time streaming data.
Awesome, thanks for that answer, Andrew. And other than that MCP question, that looks like all the questions that we had in the chat. So hey, if you have other questions, though, feel free, join our Slack channel, kx.com/Slack, and that's a great place to get probably the fastest answers from myself and other folks on the team. So definitely check that out. And I think with that will conclude our session for today. So big thank you, Mike and Andrew, for coming on and answering all these questions. A lot to look forward to. And really, there's a lot already there, too, with KDB-X. So really excited moving forward. And also, thanks, everyone, for joining. We appreciate you taking the time to come and learn a little bit more about KDB-X.
And as our community, please keep the feedback coming.
Yes, please.
We really appreciate that. We are available to help you, but we have different forms by which we take that feedback, and we not only do we take it very seriously, it actually influences and drives what we do in our product. So we appreciate that. Thank you for your time and your energy in it.
Yep, thank you. Second what Mike just said, the feedback is probably the most important part of this, and it's really what's going to drive our product going forward.
Awesome. All right, thanks everybody, and have a great rest of your day. We'll see you next time.
Bye-bye.